right, everyone. It is now 2 o'clock, and I would like to welcome everyone to the September 17th American Gym Society webinar hosted by the AGS Young Title Holders. My name is Josh Prushin, and I am the Program Director for the AGS YTs. And on behalf of the YTs and our President, Mark Nanasi, thank you for attending today's webinar. I am excited to present Nan Palmer. We just talked about an intro, and she has a little intro for herself, but probably what's not her intro is these two things. One is that she serves as the past president now in Colorado for the Women's Jewelry Association, also known as WJA, which is an international nonprofit organization that empowers women and men within the jewelry and watch industry. The one thing that may not be in her introduction on herself is in her spare time, she practices the science of 8 limbs and has spent over a decade doing Muay Thai boxing and has traveled to Thailand to train with Thai fighters. And currently resides in Denver with her husband and 3 children. So if everyone would like to welcome Nan Palmer.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Josh. I appreciate it. Thank you everybody for joining today. I want to say thank you to AGS and the AGS Young Title Holders, Josh, of course, and then Kyle Reselman for getting all the logistics set up for today's webinar. So good afternoon, good morning, I guess, if for those of you that are joining from the West Coast. My name is Nan Palmer. I am the owner and managing director of Facets, a full service consulting agency that specializes in merchandising and planning solution. So, yep, those two things that Josh mentioned is not in my intro, but a little bit about my background. I started my career working for Finley Fine Jewelry, which was the largest jewelry leasing company in North America. That was just a few years prior to the May and Federated merger in 2005. At Finley, I managed the jewelry inventory for over 800 department stores throughout the US. I was fortunate to start my career on the analytical side of the business because managing stock and forecasting your inventory is a major component in being successful with your brand. Macy's is where I spent a large part of my career as a jewelry buyer and planner, working with vendors to create new products to drive our company's revenue. After Macy's, I actually went to the luxury sector of the industry and worked for David Yurman to launch collections such as Cable Reimagine, Meteorite. I also helped launch their timepiece and bridal department for the iconic brand. So about Facets, my company, currently a majority of my clients are jewelry manufacturers and retailers grossing from $5 to $30 million in retail sales annually. I help these major players through in-depth data analysis and developing merchandising strategies to make them more profitable. So what does that mean, you might ask? I address product gaps, I help them forecast their sales, manage their replenishment, I provide margin optimization and performing postpartums. Basically all the nerdy stuff that goes on behind the background. About 30% of my client base are new and emerging designers, and I offer consulting to prepare them for market and for open to buy from a seasonal buyer perspective. As Josh mentioned, I am the past president of WJA Colorado. I also recently became a member of AGS in February, so very excited. You can learn more about my company on my website. These are the brands that I have worked with currently and also in the past. So we're to get started. Just a quick intro about what we're going to be learning today. So data analysis has the potential to transform any business to help organize, operate, and create value and opportunities. Business owners and executives generally focus on the broader strategies and avoid being dragged into the weeds of their business. This is a mistake. Today, understanding the details from your analytics is quintessential. The smallest detail can create the biggest impact in your business, whether you're a retailer, a manufacturer, or a jewelry designer. So in this 45-minute webinar, I'm going to be showing you examples how leveraging data in your sales reporting can create profits, maximize opportunities, and streamline the merchandising and product development process. What are some of the quick tools, proven formulas, and criteria to apply in order to quickly pinpoint opportunities within your business? Today, you'll discover ways to develop standards to review your business so you can focus more time with your customers and less time on analysis paralysis. So these are some of the latest headlines in our industry. Slightly daunting. So just in the last 6 months, for example, in Q2, Bloomberg reported that over a course of 2 days, over 300 retail stores shut its doors. And as we all know, our industry shrank again last year. Over 1,000 North America jewelry company discontinue operation. And then just right in the beginning of Q2, Pandora, which is considered the top 20 super winners in fashion, they gross almost $900 million in profits in 2017, announced that they'll be closing their lowest margin stores after Q1 results. So again, it's a little scary, but my advice to you is to be proactive. And to further illustrate that point, I promise I'm going to be more positive after this, but this is the growth expectation from last year to this year by industry. It was published by McKinsey, which is a leading global research company. And as you see here, for the watch and jewelry industry, and this came out Q4 of last year, so it'll be interesting to see how it lands at the end of this year. But the jewelry and watch industry is expected to drop another percentage point. So instead of 3.5% growth, it's going to go down to just 2.5%. So what's the takeaway here? The takeaway here is that the days of sitting back is over. Waiting for your vendor or perhaps your retailer to provide insights is going to be too late. So smart businesses and smart business owners are being self-destructive before their competitors do to stay ahead. So again, be proactive, know your business inside and out, whether you're in the manufacturing or the retail side. So these are just some questions that you should kind of keep in the back of your mind throughout the presentation. What type of reporting system do you use? I know there are quite a few of you joining us today, and I know there are retailers, manufacturers, there are also some designers in the mix. So just to keep it broad, for example, if you're a manufacturer or a bigger vendor, you might have a sophisticated ERP system that really encompasses various management and intelligence like your CRM, your HR, your inventory and supply chain management. But if you're a smaller company, like if you're a designer or a smaller brand, you could be getting your reporting from your POS system or even through your website. So these are type of questions you should consider. How does your data and reporting help you improve your business? And are you putting your analytics into work for you? So a couple of things, a couple of benefits of leveraging your business with analytics. So number one, you can meet your customers' needs with increased responsiveness. You can streamline product development and your merchandising process. You can find opportunities through personalization and pricing. You can also react rapidly to trends and increase productivity. And lastly, be credible by applying hard and historical data with soft intel. Obviously, it's really important to know what's going on out there in the trend, as far as trend is concerned, fashion trend, jewelry trends, but it's also very important to know your facts and figures. And most importantly, wouldn't you sound more credible instead of just saying, oh, business is good, to saying, my business was up 30% to last year and it's up 10% to plan. So being analytical will really help streamline, not just from inside your business, but throughout your daily task and daily routine. So again, I know we have a lot of different people from different part of the business joining us today, so I'm going to keep it to 4 points as far as our topics that we're going to be covering for today. So first, we're going to talk about categories, how establishing categories can benefit your merchandising and product development process. Number two, your price point or your average unit retail. How average unit retail can help segment your business and create opportunities. We're going to talk about seasonality, how to leverage seasonality and why it's important to your business overall efficiency. And lastly, we're going to talk about productivity, how to gauge and calculate style productivity. I'm going to give you the novel version, and I'm going to give you a Cliff Notes version. All right, so this might look familiar to some of you. It's a little daunting. Like I said, whether you're a manufacturer or retailer, your sales reporting probably looks a little similar to this. Just rows and rows and columns after columns of numbers and data. But don't freak out. It's my little emoji, don't freak out. I'm gonna provide some simple and key ways to look at your reports and to draw a conclusion quickly so that you can focus your efforts into other parts of your business. We're gonna learn how to extract the right information today. All right, so first topic, establishing category. So when you hear the word good performance, what does that mean? Good performance will mean different things to different companies, and it will mean that different types of data should be isolated, aggregated, and analyzed depending on the specific use. Now, sometimes data points are hard to find, and certainly not all data points are created equal. But it's the data points that will help you meet your specific purpose that will have the most value. So you can find data points by developing categories to streamline the way you analyze your business. So I'm going to illustrate these points today through case studies. The first case study we have is going to be talking about a bridal manufacturer. This bridal manufacturer is based in New York City. They have two parts to their business. They have a B2B, business to business, and a B2C, business to consumer business. So they sell to retailers, but they also have private clients that come into their showroom in the Diamond District. Again, I'm going to be using different scenarios to illustrate my points today. One thing to keep in mind that is a lot of the numbers have been altered to really protect the privacy of certain clients, but the impact is very much real. So these are some of the challenges that I was tasked with this bridal manufacturer. The first challenge was that they provided me with over 3 years of sales data. It's just all in Excel. They were in the process of transitioning into a better POS system, better inventory management system, but they provided me with 3 years of sales data in Excel. It was over 60,000 lines and 84 columns, or approximately over 5 million cells of numbers. Really fun times. Challenge number two, department selling, categories and subcategory selling was not available or non-existent. They didn't really have a definitive way to extract information from these Excel reports because the categories are never established. Third challenge, they had year over year declining sales and needed to find some sort of sustainability or opportunities to build on within their current business, whether they could find opportunities in their wholesale aspect of the business or within private selling. Last challenge was the management's top concern was really not being able to participate when their high-low seasons are and react to business quickly. So for example, when is the best time to build safety stock? How much safety stock should they build? And when to hire seasonal help for their showroom. So again, this is the first challenge. Lots and lots of numbers. So this was the first step that I did in helping them extract some of this information. So they never really categorized their business in a definitive way. So they essentially have 4 different departments. So I started out with 4 of those. So the first one, they have a bridal sector of their business. So there's one. They also sold loose diamonds, whether it was to retailers or to the end consumer. They sold all different carat weights in all different shapes and sizes. They have a wedding band business as well. And then lastly, they have a jewelry business also. So there are 4 different major components or departments, as I call it. And then within each of these departments, I created codes and basically drilled down to what essentially what bridal, what loose diamonds, and wedding band and jewelry stands for. So for bridal, this is just an example. Obviously, these are the different shapes. And then within that, it could be a round complete, which is a complete ring, or a round semi-mount, emerald cut, princess cut, cushion cut, complete or semi-mount. So within loose diamonds, it might look different. If you have a bridal business, it might look very different to you, but we started bucketing it through half a carat and under, between half a carat to 75 points, 76 points to just under a carat to a carat 24, so on and so forth. So again, this is just something that was created for them specifically that was important to their business. Wedding bands. So they also sold quite a bit of wedding bands. And as it turns out, they had a pretty robust business in their women's eternity band, which they didn't know about before. But again, by creating these categories and subcategories, we're able to drill down to what these actually did for their business. And lastly, these are just some of the categories that were created for their jewelry business. They just started a fine jewelry area a couple of years ago. And up until this point, they just really provided me with soft intel. They were just able to tell me, oh, we feel, quote unquote, feel that, our jewelry business is picking up, when in fact, when the fact of the matter is they were absolutely right. But again, combining that soft intel with hard data is the key. So what's the takeaway here? Takeaway is create categories that will work for your company to efficiently review your business. And the result after doing this was consolidating 3 years of data, or over 5 million cells, into 43 specific categories for easy analysis. So third challenge, as I mentioned, they had year-over-year declining sales. This looks a little scary. So over the course of the last 3 years, between 2015, 2017, they went from approximately $13 million in retail sales to about $10 million in retail sales. You can see that pretty gnarly slope going down there, and it's divided between their wholesale and private selling. I'm not sure if it comes through on your side of the screen, but if you look at it from a visual standpoint, you can kind of see here that in their private selling, even though sales were declining, the sales penetration for private was actually larger. So when I dug a little bit deeper and separated it into pie charts, you can see here, even though they had declining sales, what was important as a takeaway is that their private business continued to grow from 20% in 2015 to 30% in 2007. So they grew 10 percentage points over the course of 3 years. So what's the takeaway here? Even though overall sales might be soft, be sure to segment your business to find opportunities. And as a result, the client increased their company efforts in 2018 to focus on their business to consumer side by reallocating marketing budget and pinpointing bestsellers. So just because things are rough doesn't mean that there's not light at the end of the tunnel, or that there's not opportunities to be developed. All right, next we're going to talk about seasonality. So what is seasonality? So the definition for seasonality is a periodic fluctuation that regularly occurs in a predictable pattern based on a particular season, quarter, or month. So a really simple way to look at seasonality is like the weather. So seasonality is an ever evolving trend, but in general, most of the business, large or small, that I've been involved in, spring usually accounts for 40% of the sales, while fall accounts for 60% of the sales. However, Q4 generally occupies approximately 40% of the total year sales. But let's say you're a retail store and your store is in a city with a high tourism in the summer months, then then your seasonality might look vastly different from other traditional retailers. So my tip here for you is to use seasonality as a timeline for future manufacturing and in managing inventory flow to improve your overall efficiency within your organization. So back to my bridal manufacturer case study. So this is their last challenge. Management had a really hard time figuring out when to anticipate their high-low selling season and how to react to business quickly. One of the things they told me was that, it's hard to come in every day not knowing what to expect. Well, this is why seasonality is your friend. So this is just a chart illustrating what a typical seasonality looks like for a retail business. So you can kind of see, it peaks during certain months. As you can see, February for Valentine's Day, it goes up again around the months of Mother's Day and graduation between May and June. And then you really do a big chunk, about 40%, close to 40% of your business for Q4. That's for a typical traditional retail business. That's where it peaks. Now for this particular bridal manufacturer, their peak season, when we separated all of the data, really happened between the months of April and July. So from a visual standpoint, you can see how vastly, how different it looks. So what's the takeaway? Seasonality is the most frequently used statistical pattern to improve the accuracy of demand forecasting. Although the fluctuation may be somewhat predictable year over year, just be sure to determine that by your area of business. So as a result, the client was able to better anticipate inventory needs. They were able to build their necessary safety stock, the right quantity and at the right time, in addition to anticipating their traffic in their showroom by hiring seasonal help. All right, average unit retail. What is average unit retail? Well, it's the average dollar amount spent on a particular type of item. This is, I guess you can say it's definition. It's a matrix that supplier and retailer use to compare sales across different departments or category by dividing the total sales in dollars into the number of units sold. So here's an example. Let's say you did $5,000 in retail sales, divided into 50 units, your average out the door price is about $100. Or it is $100. This is just a sample chart. So AUR can be measured by for a variety of departments and a variety of categories within an organization. This is just a sample AUR by materials for men's jewelry. So you can look at it through metal, you can look at it by stone, by color, by price point. Really can slice it, dice it in all different ways. But the takeaway here is that having a good understanding of AUR by category is crucial when determining your pricing strategy. So quick question for all of you. Do you know what your AUR is and how does that differ across your organization? All right, so my second case study, I'm sure you guys know who this is. This is from my previous life at David Yurman. This is my case study is for a luxury brand with omni-channel distribution. So again, some of the numbers have been altered, but the impact is very much real. So first discovery, the total overall company's AUR was approximately $1,000 at retail. So, and then we found out that the AUR in bracelet cuff was higher at actually 30% higher at $1,300. So that's when I work with the CRM team, or the customer relationship management team. And they provided me with data showing that the more mature woman, our more mature customer, 45 to 55 years old and 55 and 65 years old, they were spending anywhere from 25 to 75% more at POS than average for themselves in the bracelet cuff category, or 12,050 and 1750 respectively. Third discovery, the younger generation, 25 to 35, what I would consider as Gen Y or millennial, spent less money. They spent 70% less than the average in the bracelet category. So what's the opportunity here? So there was no current price point offering in the bracelet cuff category that would appeal to the younger generation. So to illustrate that point further, as all of you might know, the iconic bracelet cuff category for this luxury brand in the thicker millimeter gauges have been and are still very popular among women between the ages of 45 to 65, because they have more spending power and they're willing to pay more for gold and for gemstones and encrusted bracelets. So these are, just as an example, the type of women that are buying these bracelets. They're more mature, they have greater spending power, they're willing to buy more and layer more on the chunky looks. However, the marketing efforts for the company was really gearing towards a younger generation, which cannot really afford these thick, chunky, gem encrusted bracelets. So here it is in a chart just to illustrate this point further. So as I mentioned, the average unit retail for the company was about $1,000 spend. And you can see here these two older or more mature age ranges are generally spending more at the counter. So anywhere from 25 to 75% more than the average. And this is where the millennial age range, they're usually just spending anywhere from 250 to 300 at POS. They were buying mostly sterling silver charms or sterling silver stack rings, small charm bracelet and things like that. But if you look at it from a cable millimeter bracelet perspective, the average spend for the bracelet category was much more, $300 more. But the lowest price we're offering was at $850. And the thinnest millimeter gauge we're offering was at 5 millimeter. And it could be anywhere from 5 millimeter up to 10 millimeter. So you can see how that price goes up as you're getting thicker millimeter gauges. But there was no price offering for these younger folks. That's my drum roll. So what was the end result from doing this? The result was the development of the 3 millimeter and 3.5 millimeter cable bracelet with a target AUR of $500 to appeal to millennials, which helped increase brand awareness. In addition to that, also generated a lot of sales. So post deep dive into this, into our AUR for this specific category, we discovered that there was no specific offering this price range for the millennial age group. So with spending power in upwards of $200 billion a year, millennials, or as they said, Generation Y, was grossly underserved in our company. So this making these smaller millimeter gauges, 3 and 3.5 millimeter, created a large opportunity for the company. So after the success of the thinner gauges, we also launched Cable Reimagined. It was a collection of attractively priced bracelets in colorful aluminum. The AUR of that was just about $300. That particular campaign, we sold out in less than a month and made quite a bit of money. So it was very successful. So the takeaway here is that AUR is an important matrix to understand and an excellent way to carve out opportunities. So be sure to determine what your AUR is by classifications and by categories. All right, productivity. So when I say the word productivity, I'm sure there's some store owners out there, retailers out there. When you think of productivity, you're probably thinking your retail sales, dividing that into your square footage. But there is also such a thing as style productivity. So far, I have not brought up inventory, which is also critical to consider when you're analyzing your business. But like I said, I'm going to start by giving you the novel version of style productivity, and I'll give you a Cliff Notes version. So, what is style productivity? It is the process of analyzing the cost of carrying each inventory item to ensure that it's meeting its financial objectives, and comparing the ratios by style versus sales. So just one thing to keep in mind, I'm going to show you a couple of charts. I'm going to talk through them, so bear with me. The takeaway here about style productivity is that the ratio should be aligned for a healthy assortment and profit balance. You obviously don't want a large discrepancy between what you're offering in styles versus what it's generating in your sales. So make sure you tweak that accordingly based on your findings. So this is my first example. This is my step one. So, obviously, you're going to have more than just 10 styles in your current assortment or in your store, but this is just a quick sample. So this is how you would do this exercise. You would basically list out all the styles that you're offering, what the sale price is, what your cost is, and then determining what your gross profit. So to determine your gross profit, all you're doing is taking your sales price. So for example, style one is $150. Minus $68 will give you $82. That is your gross profit. So after that, what you want to do is create your gross profit range, which is right here. Again, this is going to be different depending on what type of company you are. This is just an example, but if you're more high end, your gross profit range will probably be different than this. If you sell more sterling silver jewelry, it'll also look very different than this because you'll have your ranges will be a lot shorter and it'll be a lot lower in prices. So from here, you're just going to break out your number of styles that fall into these buckets. So for example, you have 3 different styles that fall under the gross profit range of $250. You have another 3 styles that fall between $250, $499, so on and so forth. And all you're doing is turning it into a percentage. So again, you will have more than 10 styles, but you're just going to break it out into your style ratio. So that's step 2. Now, step 3, what you want to do is figure out how many units you sell. So for this example, I put down Q1 unit selling. Again, obviously, hopefully some of you would have sold more than 50 units, but just to keep it simple, you're going to plug in how many units you sold within those gross profit range. And then again, you're going to break it out into sales ratio. In your final step, you're just going to compare your sales ratio, or sorry, your style ratio versus your sale ratio. So when you're looking at it side by side from here, hopefully you guys like my emoji. You can see that in the gross profit range that are less than $250 and also $750 and higher are doing relatively good. It's pretty much in line. You have $30 or 30% styles. Your sales is 36%. And then here you have 20% style ratio, 30% sales. If anything, I would do a deep dive in this gross profit range to see if there are some additional styles that can be offered to really keep this more of a balance. Where it's a little bit scary is that in the gross profit range between $250 and $499, this is off kilter. You can see here you have a lot more styles being offered here, but it's only pulling 12% of your sales. So this is the conclusion. Once your style and sales ratio are determined, you can conclude where to increase and decrease your inventory and marketing efforts. The best performing style range means there's a higher demand for that product, obviously, and that there is potential for generating greater sales volume if you increase your marketing efforts, your inventory, or other things. Your worst performing style range means that there's probably too much supply and you're not using your resources efficiently. You should plan to reduce your marketing, inventory, and or remove the product altogether. So obviously, this is a really quick way to illustrate the novel version of style productivity. Completing this exercise can be very tedious. So my advice to you is to look to automate the process with a software solution or hiring an experienced consultant to help you do it. I also recommend doing this exercise on a quarterly, seasonally, and annual basis to make sure that you're not making crucial mistakes with your two most important resources, which is your time and your money. Style productivity can make a big difference in your company's profitability. Whew, okay, all right. Hopefully, no one's asleep yet. Like I said, that was the long version. So I'm going to give you a more simplified version of style productivity. It's much faster, what's much simpler way to determine how profitable a category is within the department. All you need to do is divide your retail sales over the style count. Just as a quick note, I only recommend doing this if you have similarly priced items and with similar launch dates. So again, this is just an example. Let's say you are a bridal retailer or bridal manufacturer, and these are different types of bridal styles that you offer. What you want to do is you want to figure out what your average productivity is. So for example, let's say you did $4.2 million. These are in thousands. Let's use it $4.2 million in retail sales and you offer 603 styles. So all you're doing is taking the sales, divided into the amount of styles, and your average productivity for your setting styles is 6,600. And then you can see here, the other example, if we look at the vintage setting style, you have 248,000 in sales, but you have 87 styles. So on average, your vintage styles is only generating 2,800 in productivity. So a lot less than your average. So to put this in a bar chart, you can see it a lot more easily. The dotted line just represents what the average is, which is 6,600. And this will be a great visual to show your team as far as where to move forward with some additional efforts in marketing and product development and where to really scale down on inventory and try to sell down. So 3-stone, vintage, side stone, unique, these are the few that are not performing up to par. So my last case study is in regards to a online fashion jewelry retailer. Up to this point, we talked about bridal company. We've talked about a luxury company. Now we're going to go more on the fashion side. So it's just an example of some of the things that we sell, a little bit more about them. They generated 8 figures in retail sales just in 2017. And their average unit retail was at $120 out the door. They sell mostly sterling silver-based jewelry. So first discovery, this company had substantial growth since starting their e-commerce site in 2005. They sell internationally, but 97% of their sales are being generated in the USA. They rely heavily on social marketing. They spend a ton of money on Facebook retargeting, Instagram shopping, and so forth, and so on and so forth. Discovery 2, their site had, yep, you read that right, 4,000 style offerings. So this online company, they only sell online, no brick and mortar, nothing of that sort. They don't sell to retailers, they had 4,000 styles on their site. That's a lot of styles to scroll through. Another discovery is that 1,400 of those styles had zero sales whatsoever in 2017 when I was analyzing their business. That's 35% of their total assortment that was just sitting there not doing anything. Third discovery, approximately 500 styles, or just 13% of their entire assortment, generated 80% of their sales. That's insane. So what's the opportunity here? Determine productivity by categories, and I help them deploy a edit to grow strategy to really help trim down their assortment offerings. From there, we really focus on their best-selling silhouettes to drive sales. So this is a sample style count and productivity for them. So as I mentioned, they had close to 4,000 styles. Each style was generating about $5,000 in productivity. So as you can see here, the bridal sets and wedding bands were doing pretty well. Their productivity is actually twice the amount of average at 10,000 and 10,300 for wedding bands. Engagement rings and exclusives were pretty good. They're kind of hovering where the average should be 6,500, 4,900. And where it's really scary is their charms and their fashion related items. So that's a lot of charms to scroll through online, 425 charms, barely making it. I mean, it's $25 per style that they're generating versus an average of 5,000. Fashion was also pretty crappy down here. If anyone's looking at the personalization, this is bad too, but keep in mind what I mentioned earlier, this activity should be done for things that are that have similar launch dates. Like you should really focus on one single period. So this was just on here because they had just launched their personalization category. When you put it into perspective in percentages, this is how bad it looks. For charms, they have 11 style, but they have 11% of style offerings, but their sales is less than 1%. Fashion items had 27% style offering, generating only 5% of sales. With bridal and wedding bands really killing it there. I mean, that's well over 60% of how much sales they were generating just in those categories. So this is just to illustrate the on a bar graph. The dotted line is where the average is. So we had to go to work on charms, fashion, and personalization to see how we can lift up some of these and maximize opportunities in wedding bands and bridal set. So next step, I deployed a edit to grow strategy by trimming down their assortment offerings. I perform a deep dive to determine styles that are driving most of the sales volume in addition to click-throughs. We also did a style out to reassort each category to ensure cohesiveness. Now, anytime you're selling down items or trying to get rid of things that are not selling, you always have to do a style out to make sure that it's still telling a cohesive story in your case line or online. You don't want to get rid of a specific category just because you haven't sold any. It still needs to look nice together when you're placing it within a case line or when you're scrolling it through the web page. The last step was to clearance out non-productive styles. So as I mentioned, approximately 500 styles, or just 13% of their assortment, generated 80% of sales. And so these are some of the looks that drove close to 20% of their sales volume in 2017, or almost $4 million. So they're mostly engagement styles or wedding band styles, but there's just about 20 styles here. And like I said, they did upwards of $4 million just on these looks. So what I was able to do was work with their product development team to produce additional collections that have similar silhouettes to really help their fashion area that was not doing so well with too much style offering and not enough sales. So all the information was there. It just needed to be dissected and analyzed. and to provide them with next steps. So before, this was their old productivity and old style count, and after. So here you can see I increased their productivity by 3 times. So now each style runs about $15,000 for productivity, and trimmed down the assortment by close to 65% from 4,000 style offerings to 1,500. And it was an increase of 219% for productivity. So it's all plus all across the board by doing this deep dive. All right, so just 3 more pages. If you don't take away anything else that I talked about in the last 30 minutes or so, definitely remember these. These are good top level takeaways and quick tips. So number 1, create categories. Group your business into categories and subcategories that is meaningful to your brand and specific, or that's meaningful and specific to your brand, to efficiently review data and to find opportunities. Seasonality, again, it's the most frequently used statistical pattern to improve the accuracy of demand forecasting. Make sure you complete this annually and by area of business to develop a sales plan and sales projection accordingly. Average unit retail, knowing your AUR by category is crucial when determining your pricing strategy. Know your overall AUR, figure out what the highs and lows are, and then address any product pricing gaps. Last point, productivity. Sales divided into the number of styles within a specific category to quickly determine how efficient it is to the overall business. All right, here are my quick tips for you to compete in our ever evolving industry. Collaborate. Work with and listen closely to your cross-functioning teams. Make sure you share your findings within your entire organization often and consistently. Data enhances decision-making, it helps automate processes and create new business ventures and opportunities. The smallest detail can make the biggest impact. Be open, embrace change. As you all know, the landscape of our industry is shifting faster than ever. I recommend investing in technology and also look to the next generation of jewelry consumer, Gen Z. Next year at the 2020 conclave for AGS, I plan to do a segment on Gen Z. But Gen Z right now is between the age of 9 to 22, depending on which marketing book you're reading. They are the next group of consumer, and they are planning to surpass the baby boomers by population and by spending power. So definitely get to know them. Some examples of how to embrace change and invest in technology: blockchain, ethical sourcing, lab-grown diamonds, aka culture diamonds, which I know can be quite controversial. You either love it or you hate it, but just keep an open mind. Custom, make sure you customize and personalize any sort of enhanced shopping experience if you're a retailer. Like, what's a good way to get people in your door without having to pitch to them all the time? Be self-destructive. Previous success does not guarantee future success. Look at your product, your process, your people, promotion, and pricing, and then ask, is there a better way? Be innovative to fight complacency. This is a huge one. Instead of playing catch up, seek to change the rules of the game. Be proactive, push for progress over perfection. Create soap, or make soap, as I say. What's soap? SOAP stands for strategy on a page. I recommend doing strategy on a page on an annualized basis to serve as a roadmap for your business. If you don't have a map, how do you know where you're going? So making a strategy for your business on an annual basis is key. Well, how do you do that? So I recommend following a simple GMD guideline. GMD stands for grow, maintain, and downtrend. What areas of the business will you grow? Which area will maintain, stay the same? And which area of the business will you be downtrending? And lastly, this is a bonus, appoint the right person within your organization or hire a consultant to maneuver through the weeds and be sure to implement your strategies. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much again for joining me today. I really appreciate your time, and thank you to AGS and AGS Young Title Holders. If you have any sort of comment, feedback, good or bad, I am welcome to them. You can find my contact information on here, and feel free to reach out to me, and hopefully I'll see all of you at Conclave next year, if not sooner. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.